All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Demilitarized Zone. This is the one stream designed to help you feel better about engaging in hot-button topics. Our goal here is to teach Discord survival tactics, not just farm gotchas and dunks. We cultivate meaningful, intelligent conversation where you have to stop and listen to the other person, even if it is just to find the flaws in what they are saying. So at least for tonight, please check your weapons at the door, take notes, act like grown-ups, and refrain from the blood sports and shit-slinging that have plagued our society for far too long. But our audience here does get a say, so there will be a link in the chat to where you can vote at the end. Go ahead and limber up those voting fingers. It is free for all. And exercise your democratic rights to decide which side you think made the most persuasive case. Tonight's prompt, foreign interventionism is beneficial for American society. And our debaters from the top left are going to be Tyler, the average debate enjoyer, captain of Team Affirmative. Sitting next to him, LetheWaterKai. The fuzzy picture to the right of that is going to be Cassell, and next to him is Hammer. I still say that is a podcast waiting to happen, Hammer and Cassell. And then underneath Tyler, the forehead in the corner is EnergyDaHamter. Bottom underneath Energy is GorpsInc from, well, GorpsInc. To the right of him, VigilanteTV. To the right of him is Mcgruffus, Admiral Mcgruffus, that is. And to the right of him is RazorSharpG. And our newcomer tonight on the very bottom, just by happenstance, I promise, is Owlish. Now, our judges for the night are going to be DoomerPatriot on the left and LetsChief to my immediate left. And I am, of course, your humble host and moderator, the Horseradish. So we are going to be going back and forth throughout this. This is going to be 3-minute rounds. We're going to start out with somebody from the affirmative giving an opening. Then somebody from the negative is going to cross-examine. That directed cross-examination is ultimately open conversation, although the idea for it is for the opposition to be able to clarify and or set up their own prompt or their own introduction. Once we're done with that, we're going to go to a champion round where the captains are going to put forth their best debaters to sword fight in the middle for a solid 5 minutes. And then after that, we're going to go with closings. But at the end, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a fun little curveball where the captains have to provide somebody to steelman the opposition's position for 2 minutes. Now, all of those times are recommendations. They are not required. I will tell you that our judges do pay attention to not only your rhetoric, your skill, your delivery, your ability to think around corners and interact and engage with the prompt as well as your opponent, but they do also pay attention to your time management skills. So whenever it's all said and done, we go to the judges who will give you some feedback and their score on a 10-point basis. After that, we go to the audience. Sometimes the audience votes don't matter, but you should still do it anyway. I promise. It matters to us because we're keeping score. Now, if anybody here has any questions, now would be the time. Except you, Energy. Anybody else? All right, cool. Then in that case, I'm just fucking with you, Energy. Nothing but love, buddy. Then in that case, I'm going to look at you, Tyler. 3 minutes is on the clock. Who will be your first debater on the affirmative?
All right, you're up. Lethe, I choose you.
Lethe, you have come out of your pokeballs. Whenever you are ready, sir, I will start the clock when you start to talk.
All right, 1 second. So, we are here to talk about why American interventionism is a net benefit for the global community as well as for America itself. We live in a day and age where we have a global economy. Everything affects everybody as much as we don't want to look at things in a larger sphere of influence. Everything that happens in other countries, small conflicts, supply chain shortages, all affect everybody in the global community. So every time there is a polluter, there is a conflict, there is a shortage, or there's any sort of issues going on, it's going to affect everybody. So America taking the first steps to ensure trade routes, to ensure that conflicts end amicably, or even just to go ahead and put sanctions or tariffs on countries that are bad actors, is a net benefit to the entire world. Without America going in to stop the Houthis, you would have an issue of supply chain issues. As we're seeing now with current conflicts like the Hormuz Strait, you're seeing that America not intervening in this situation is causing massive issues with gas and energy, to the point where we're about to go down to 4-day work weeks because we just can't afford the energy. So seeing America step away from the interventionism as we're seeing today, we're already seeing the effects hit us in ways that we never even thought could have been the case for America or for other countries throughout the world. So I would like to establish that things like USAID have been beneficial, even though you may be able to find some negatives going along here. There is no perfect system and there's no perfect interventionism. There will be issues along the way, and I'm willing to address those. But for the most part, you're going to see that America intervening has been a source of stability throughout the entire world, not just for America.
Okay. That sounded like you landed it. All right. Gorps, who's going to cross-examine?
Mcgruffus.
Mcgruffus, you're up, buddy. 3 minutes is on the clock. I'll start whenever you ask. Mcgruffus, can you hear me? Mcgruffus, are you there?
Sorry, my actual mic was muted.
Your actual mic. All right, cool.
Yeah, it's whatever. So, Lethe, you said we live in an interconnected global society where issues affect everyone. By that logic, if a civil war breaks out in Sudan, does that affect American society? And should we intervene in that?
Yes, it absolutely does. And it would be good if we did, but we don't always do that.
But if you say... So let's make sure that... Okay, so let's say China's government, right, owns 100... Sorry. So let's say you're defending interventionism on the way to make America safer, right? In 1953, the CIA overthrew Iran's democratically elected prime minister. You are aware of that, right?
No, I'm not aware of that. If you'd like to elaborate.
No, I was just more so establishing that as a fact. And in 1953, a coup installed the Shah. The CIA coup installed the Shah, a dictator backed by the U.S. for 26 years, which directly led to the 79 Iranian Revolution, an anti-American regime that exists today. So can we intervene to control Iran? And that intervention also created the Iranian threat we face now, right?
No, it didn't create what we're facing now. The lack of coordination in that region between the actors is what caused that. America just just quartered the Shah.
Really? So the fact that a revolution that was directly caused by U.S. intervention and actions is not the U.S. fault. This is directly thing that the CIA even basically directly admits with their concept of blowback.
Yes. So you can look at it as, America intervening caused some conflict, but America not intervening would have been more horrific. So we're trying to create stability within that area. We got a stabilized area. It may not be the most ideal, because for the most part, when you install leadership in any particular area, there's going to be a way they run things. And it's not going to be without bloodshed. It's not going to be perfect, but it will create a sense of stability in that area more so than if we had done nothing.
All right. And in 1980s, we armed the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to fight the Soviets. And that same network became Al-Qaeda, which attacked us at 9/11. So we intervened in the 80s, which led to the terrorists who attacked us, which justified our 9/11 invasion, which we spent the last 20 odd years trying to fight, and ended up with the Taliban back in power. So we created the problem we spent 20 years failing to solve.
Go ahead and answer that, Lethe. If there was a question
So
there.
because I'm not quite sure it was a question, but I'm guessing it was why, if it wasn't solved and there was conflict. So it's not incumbent on America to solve problems, is to maintain stability, is to maintain as close to a status quo as possible. So in not doing so, the area would have been much more destabilized. There would have been more groups fighting for power in that area and creating more chaos. So who's to say 9/11 wouldn't have happened 10 years earlier had that been the case?
All right. Good stuff. Mcgruffus, 3 minutes is now going to be on the clock for your opening statement. I will start the clock when you do.
All right. I just like to say really quickly that Osama bin Laden darkly sided our foreign policy for his attacks on the towers and 9/11 in general. But my opponents, my opponent told you what vaguely kind of implied what he thinks the prompt means. But here's what it actually says, right? Foreign interventionism, not American interventionism, foreign interventionism. So, for an example, France intervened in our economy, or in our Revolutionary War in 1778. They sent troops, funding, and whatnot to help us fight the British. Foreign capital also intervenes in our economy every day, right? Toyota, BMW, and Nintendo. Foreign tourists come in to intervene in our economy every day via visiting Disney World and spending billions of dollars. I mean, I would almost say that I like American foreign interventionism, but that's not quite what Lethe was really arguing there. He meant foreign American interventionism in foreign countries. Well, but that's not what the prompt says. America intervening isn't about foreign interventionism from America's perspective. It's our interventionism in foreign places. It's like calling the Department of War the Department of Foreign Aggression, right? I mean, it might be more accurate, but the grammar really doesn't work. And here's why this matters beyond me just having a little fun. If we can't even clearly define what we're debating in a controlled setting with a written prompt, preparation time, and no bombs falling, how can we possibly define clear, achievable, limited goals when we're spending trillions of dollars and actually dropping bombs on people? And this isn't pedantry either. It's the exact problem with interventionism in practice. But fine, I'll be charitable. Let me interpret this poorly worded prompt for him. What I think he meant was the U.S. use of military force, economic coercion, or political interference in other nations' affairs when those nations pose no direct imminent threat to American territory or citizens. And I will further define those three terms, which would be military force would be invasion, occupation, bombing campaigns, drone strikes, initiating conflict against armed countries that didn't attack us. Economic coercion is sanctions that starve civilian populations and embargoes that cut off medicine and food. It is not voluntary trades where both sides benefit. And a political interference would be something like the CIA-backed coup, funding opposition groups to overthrow governments, election interference, and threatening sanctions unless regimes change. The affirmative has to defend the indefensible. Mass murder. Just instead of only being guns and bombs, there's a flag too.
All right. So, Tyler, looking at you, who's going to cross-examine Mcgruffus?
Lethe, go! Use energy to hammer now!
Lethe cannot, unfortunately. Oh, I
He
see.
shot energy to hammer.
I got it. I get the reference. I'm sorry. I caught up. Energy, you're up. Cross-examination starts whenever you start to talk.
So basically, my question would be to you, how do you respond to the fact that if there are circumstances where if we didn't intervene, then American troops' lives would be at risk and American citizens' lives would be at risk and foreign lives would be at risk because of foreign governments funding terrorism? For example, the Iranian government funding Hamas and Hezbollah, which are both responsible for the deaths of American and Israeli civilians.
Well, first, Israeli civilians aren't American society, so this is well outside the scope of this debate and this prompt. As for,
but they could I just clarify a point there real quick?
I would like to finish my response to that first, really quickly, which is
okay.
You also have to you're assuming there that that it isn't the U.S. intervening that initially caused that threat, so to speak, right? I pointed this out in my cross of Lethe. We spent 20 years in Afghanistan only for in the Middle East only for Osama bin Laden to do 9/11, citing directly our foreign policy, and then we also ended up back in the Middle East again, fighting 20 more years in the Middle East again, only for us to pull out with the same people in charge who were originally in charge.
Okay, so there are two responses to that. So the first thing with Israeli civilians is, I do think part of it is moral reputation. So America gets moral points for protecting foreign lives. But second of all, on top of moral reputation that we get from saving foreign civilians, we also get the fact that they're a trading partner of the U.S. And so we buy and benefit from Israeli technology. So that's thing one. And then thing two is the fact of the matter is the reason we overthrew the Iranian government was because they nationalized I believe it was British and American oil companies, although it could have been just British oil companies, but they nationalized oil companies that were not theirs, and so Western governments had the right to protect our oil, which did not belong to them.
Who says that they originally didn't? How do you know that they originally didn't before then were owned by some Iranian companies or whatnot? I mean, before Iran was a country, when it was still Persia, it was an independent country. Then the Soviets and the British came in and basically occupied the country and took their oil. So I mean, I would say that
My understanding is that the British oil companies freely traded with the Iranians to buy their oil with contracts.
Probably I would say under the threat of a gun, given that once again the Soviets and the British occupied Iran during World War II, right? And
All right.
especially the Soviets definitely left.
All right.
Can I finish?
Yep, go ahead.
Never mind. And the Soviets definitely staying there also most certainly did not help with their did not help when it came to their thoughts about foreign countries. There we go.
Thank you. Well, can you finish? I don't know. All right.
Yes.
Now going back over to you, Gorps. Who is going to cross? Or no, I'm sorry. It's Energy's open. My bad. Energy. 3 minutes is on the clock for you to do your opening. Go ahead and start it up.
So basically, my position is, and the main thesis that I've been preparing for this debate is that we get moral reputation status by intervening in foreign countries. And when we morally have the high ground, other countries want to do things like trade with us and be less likely to be at war with us. So for example, let's say in the future, there's some sort of conflict abroad, and let's say we side with the good guys, like we side with Ukraine against the Russian invasion of the government, we side with Israel against Hamas, etc. Basically, this means that Ukrainians and Israelis and what have you, and other liberal democratic countries that we're allies with want to be our allies, and so they're less likely to A, be at war with us in the future, and B, they're more likely to trade with us in the future. Now, the second thing is also basically, the fact is a lot of times when we intervene in foreign countries, it's because other countries nationalize our oil. So for example, the reason, to my understanding, that Trump is doing what he's doing in Venezuela, even though he says it's for drugs, I think another reason is also because of the fact that the Venezuelan government, under the socialist government, basically nationalized American oil, if my memory serves me correctly. And the same thing with the American intervention in Iran that Mcgruffus was mentioning. That was because they nationalized Western oil companies, and that oil belongs to us, not to them. Another thing I would say is that if we don't intervene, we also have the problem that we don't get the benefit of a more secure globe, because basically on top of the moral reputation we get, we also fighting terrorists long terms means there's fewer terrorists. So by taking out the current Iranian government, we'll have fewer people who are funding Hamas and Hezbollah, and that means that in the long term, global terrorism will decrease. Now, as for the idea of blowback or us funding the Mujahideen, you can cherry pick examples from history, but overall we have to take things in holistically, right? we know from the scientific method that we do trial and error, and sometimes we err, but that doesn't mean that we should give up on the scientific method. It just means that we're not infallible. And if we search for infallibility and we say, well, only if we have a 100% perfect track record of foreign intervention will we ever support foreign intervention in general, then we're asking for omniscience, which is humanly impossible. And then I would also add that I don't think most of the people who are critical of war understand the failure of non-interventionism in the context that I mentioned, of what it would actually do, which would, I believe, cripple the American economy, cripple our standing with the world, etc. And so yeah, I'm a big supporter of the American, Israeli, Ukrainian, etc. governments defending themselves from foreign terrorists like Hamas and Hezbollah and what have you. And we should support the West against these organizations. But yeah, anyway, time's up, basically. Sorry.
All right, landed it on the nose. Good stuff, Energy. Now, the question I already asked, unfortunately, Gorps, who's going to be cross-examined? I had a strange hunch that was going to be the answer. So I'm just going to remind everybody, please, let's keep it above the belt. 3 minutes is on the clock. Gorps, get after it.
Panda, do you think that the current war in Iran is beneficial to America because we're going after these terrorists?
So two things. First, please call me Energy. You can call me Panda, but Energy is my current username.
Okay, that's fine. Chop. Let's go.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so do you think that the 13 U.S. service members that have been killed and the over 200 that have been injured is necessary?
I'm not familiar with the specific military tactics to know whether it's necessary to defeat the current Iranian regime. There could be better military tactics.
No,
but
it
I
doesn't
don't
matter.
know.
The prompt is it's beneficial to American society. So Americans dead and injured. You seem to support this war. American society includes these service members that are dead and injured. How is this beneficial?
Because long term, when we get rid of the current Iranian regime, on top of the moral support we get from the world,
Right.
we
So
also
the
get the
Ayatollah that was directly opposed to Iran having a nuke that we killed, which led to the current Ayatollah who is pro-nuke, pro-Iran having nukes. How does this benefit American society?
Well, to my understanding, the current interventionists are trying to get rid of that Ayatollah, the second Ayatollah.
Yeah, the one that we caused to be in place. That's the thing.
Yeah, we're trying to get rid of him.
So is it beneficial that we caused an Ayatollah who wants Iran to have nukes? How does that benefit American society?
Well, what will be beneficial if we get rid of him as well? And the reason we should get rid of him is because.
Hold on. What benefits America if we got rid of the first Ayatollah? And like, where is the benefit for American society?
The first Ayatollah was directly responsible for the deaths of American and Israeli civilians.
Okay. Where's the benefit for American society for an Iran that has been more measured than American or Israel in the region? We have now created a radical regime, more radical than the previous one, and more anti-America than the previous one. How does this benefit America?
We're trying to overthrow that too.
Trump said that he's not doing regime change.
He says that, but do you think Trump is completely honest?
All we can do is take him for his word. We're not doing regime change. I want to go back to another point that you made. Our oil. So the oil that is in Iran, and in Venezuela, our oil. Why do you think this is our oil?
Because the oil companies bought them from Venezuelan and Iranian people.
Well, those governments seem to think that it's their oil and it's in their country. How does it benefit America for us to overthrow regimes for fucking oil?
You're a libertarian. You should understand the importance of voluntary contracts.
Yeah, and the governments are saying no. That's
what
what
the governments
Iran nationalizing the oil was.
I don't think governments
and again,
have the.
I asked, how does this benefit American society?
Okay, I'll just finish this and then
go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is, by violating the contracts, the foreign governments have created a moral hazard in the economy, which means we're less likely to have economic investment in their countries, which is bad for both us and them.
All right, so Gorps, you kept it clean. I appreciate that, buddy. 3 minutes is on the clock. Time is ready for you. Start it whenever you're ready.
Foreign interventionism, especially in the Middle East, has been one of the most consistent failures in modern American history. It's not controversial or mixed results, it is an abject failure, and the idea that somehow it benefits American society is the kind of take you only get from people who never live with the consequences. To be blunt, every time the US intervenes in the Middle East, we break something, we leave, and then we act shocked when the region catches fire. And then the same people who caused the disaster in the first place show up years later, pretending that the solution is more intervention. If this debate was about intentions, maybe the pro side would have a chance, but it's about outcomes, and the outcomes are brutal. We toppled Iraq's government, and that created the power vacuum that birthed ISIS, and then we funded them. We armed moderate rebels in Syria and watched those weapons end up with extremists. We spent trillions of dollars to get nothing but instability, resentment, and body bags. We strengthened Iran's regional influence by eliminating every rival around it. If this is what beneficial looks like, I'd hate to see their definition of harmful. And here's the part the pro side will probably dance around all night. Foreign intervention doesn't serve American society, it serves defense contractors. It serves the people who profit from endless war, not the people who pay for it. Ordinary Americans don't get safer communities, better infrastructure, or lower taxes from bombing campaigns. They get higher debt, higher oil prices, and a world that trusts us less every year. This is not to mention the attacks on American citizens that stem directly from our actions abroad. Even in the last year and a half, on January 1st, 2025, in an ISIS-inspired attack, the terrorists rammed their car and opened fire on partygoers in New Orleans, killing 14. On June 1st, 2025, there was a firebombing at an Israel Solidarity Walk. Even more recent than that, on March 7th of this year, there was an attempted bombing outside Mamdani's residence in New York City. On March 12th of this year, a man rammed his car into a synagogue and opened fire. These are all in direct reaction to American intervention in the Middle East. There's no way you can spin this to be beneficial. Meanwhile, the Middle East gets destabilized, civilians get killed, and extremist groups get a recruitment poster that writes itself. Look what America did. So when the pro side tries to sell you the fantasy that interventionism promotes democracy or protects American interests, remember, we've been hearing those slogans for the last 40 years, and the scoreboard is nothing but losses. Even when we tout our quote-unquote wins in intervention, such as Korea, we still have to contend with the fact that 36,000 Americans died, Korea is still divided, and there's no measurable benefit to actual American society. This debate is not complicated, it's not philosophical, and it's not theoretical. It is a simple question. Has U.S. intervention produced real, measurable benefits for American society? The answer is no, and the evidence is not close. If the pro side wants to defend a track record of failure, blowback, and trillion-dollar sinkholes, that's their problem. But let's not pretend it's a benefit to anyone except the people cashing the checks.
All right. Landed it on the button again. Tyler, who's cross-examining?
Oh, stop. It's hammer time.
Hammer. All right, buddy. 3 minutes is on the clock for cross-examination. Go ahead and start it when you're ready.
Okay, so my first question is, since you think that intervention is such a negative, has had such a negative impact on the U.S., do you think that we should cease all intervention?
Most of it, yeah.
Most of it, okay. Do you does that include any kind of trade agreements, any kind of like sanctions and tariffs that we place on people who do policies that we don't
When
like?
we are talking about intervention, we are talking about unconsensual intervention. Consensual trade agreements and things like that are not what we're referencing here.
Sure. So things like tariffs and sanctions, which are unconsensual intervention. Do you think we should
Yeah, we
stop
should stop
things like
them.
that? Do you think that we should pull out
The
of NATO
tariffs
and
are
the
the
UN?
exact reason that the Iranian government has gotten as extreme as it is currently. They're the reason that
Do you,
the Iranian people are suffering, and they're the reason that American service members are dead.
do you think that we should pull out of NATO and the UN, these
Yes.
defense organizations? Okay.
Yes,
So
but
in
this is
cases,
irrelevant because at the end of the day, none of these things have a direct benefit to American society. It is a taxpayer dollar suck and money that could be going back to the American people, the actual American society.
and so and so we should never try to defend our allies, any kind of trade partners or anything
I'm not saying
when
never
they're under
defend our
attack.
allies, but I'm saying
Well,
that
that's intervention.
our focus should be on on the
We're not talking
American
about
society.
focus.
American intervention
We're not talking
takes
about
that focus
focus.
away from American society onto other societies.
Yes, but if you remove our ability to defend allies and support them, then we can no longer have some of our most important alliances, especially in areas with high conflict, such as Israel and places in Asia like South Korea and Japan.
The only reason our allyship with Israel is important is because we've ostracized and ruined any other allyships in the region because of our foreign intervention.
Well, I mean, in those times, initially, if we hadn't had any kind of intervention whatsoever, then those areas would have fallen under the control of the Soviet Union, so we wouldn't have had access to them anyways. Correct?
No.
Okay. Um, I guess you can have that opinion. And what about places like Ukraine or like in the East Europe that have
Yeah,
been
how do those billions of
aggressive on?
dollars that could have been spent on the American people, how does that benefit American society?
So I'm just going to bring this up. So annually, I mean, this is a big number. It looks like a big number, but we have about 50 to 70 billion dollars that is sent to U.S. foreign support every year. That is a tiny number when you compare it to our the trade that we get from all these countries, right? We can't get oil from the Middle East if we have no presence there. There's too much conflict, and they have no interest otherwise in trading with us. Same
The
same with
conflict
places
is the
like
West
Eastern
and
Europe.
American interventionism. The conflict is America funding terrorist groups and then crying when they do terrorism.
All right, we're going to go ahead and stop it there. 3 minutes is on the clock now for you, Hammer. It's your turn to open. Go ahead and start it when you're ready.
Okay. Okay. So, the whole point of this debate is whether or not we should have any kind of intervention whatsoever. It is not about bringing up certain examples that may look bad because they were handled poorly. If you look at our track record, there are a lot of mistakes that we made in the Middle East. That does not mean that intervention as a subject should be completely dismantled, okay? If we were to stop all intervention, we would stop things like tariffs and sanctions, which I know that we have a bad history recently with tariffs, but again, it is an important tool that prevents other actors from doing such actions as China, which is using its laissez-faire copyright laws to hurt our economy. It's also we also need intervention to say put presence in places with conflict, such as Israel, such as Asia, with places like Korea, Japan, Vietnam, that otherwise have no way of maintaining their own independence and continuing to be business partners with us. We, like I already said, we spend 50 to 70 billion dollars on trade deals or on foreign aid every year. That pales in comparison to what we get from oil from the Middle East. And no, they don't just not want to trade with us because they don't like Americans because of 9/11. China and Russia have always wanted to have a presence in the Middle East. That is also the case for many of these other countries. In Eastern Europe, Russia and the Soviet Union have always wanted to have a presence there. If we had no presence whatsoever, they would be able to run through without any conflict whatsoever. If we had no intervention to any of these conflicts, Nazi Germany would run through all these European countries. They took over France and they would have taken over Britain. If we had no presence, then what is to keep France and Britain and all the other Western European countries safe from Russia, which we know now wants to take over all of Europe? And if they do that, then we have absolutely no way to maintain our alliances and our trade alliances. These alliances, you ask, how is it worth the billions of dollars? We need our trade alliances, okay? These bring in from the 50 to 70 billion annually. Compare that to the hundreds of billions of dollars that we need to maintain by keeping these alliances, which we would lose if we just completely ignored all other countries. It's just a policy that makes no sense. And ending intervention just does not work as a policy. And I end my statement.
All right. Good stuff. Gorps, who's going to cross-examine Hammer?
Owl.
Owl, you are up to the plate. It is 3 minutes on the clock for you to use as you see fit. This is for conversation and directed questioning. I'll start the clock when you start.
Okay, so you mentioned tariffs and sanctions being a good thing overall. Can you clarify or explain more about that?
Sure. So tariffs and sanctions are a necessary tool. Although, like I admitted in my opening, they're not always the best tool to be used. They are important because it places pressure on countries who are performing certain activities that we don't want to be encouraged. It's like a form
It-
of soft power.
Okay, so do you think that pushing back on somebody or increasing pressure on somebody is gonna cause more pushback on them though? Like they're gonna be more
Right.
unwilling to work with us?
They may decide to do that, and at that point, we would further our imposition of power. But usually, like a power such as America, they don't want to be in conflict with us to where we're placing sanctions on them and other things.
So it's just and as for having our people overseas, Vietnam was one of the things that you mentioned. We definitely had a very negative outcome in our intervention in Vietnam previously. So I'm wondering if, like, those sorts of things are the type of intervention that we definitely want to avoid. So, any comment about that?
Um, of course there's questions about practicality. So our problem in Vietnam is that we didn't have the proper military techniques to handle that conflict in the way that we would have. But that being said, we still have a somewhat tenuous relationship with My point is, we still have a somewhat tenuous relationship with South Vietnam, right? That if we were just to completely abandon them, then we would lose access to that area
Why do we not
more
access to
so
that
than we already
area?
have. More
Also,
so than we already
what
have.
do you mean? What do you mean that we didn't have the right military tools? We had just fought World War II.
I know, but it's a
So
completely different environment. Do you not
I
know how we
understand.
lost Vietnam?
I understand it's a completely different environment, but I mean, having the military tools is not the same thing as not being like prepared for the environment. The environment and the tools are kind of individual assets. I
I
mean,
mean,
not having.
tools and techniques are what we would have used to like if we were to deal with the issues with the environment and the techniques that they were using, then yeah, tools and technique would have been what we needed, and we didn't have those.
But we were aiding France, so France had the tools. So if France had the tools, would you think that they would share them with us?
What did I don't know that they did have the tools. I mean, if they weren't able to get any much better results than we did, or else history would have been different now.
All
I mean,
right.
it's not that.
Oop.
Well,
Sorry,
okay.
sorry, Al. Time.
Sorry.
Yep, nope. It's cool. Time's up. It's now your time to open. So go ahead and
Interrupting
put 3 minutes on the clock. Whenever you're ready to start, the clock will start with you, Al.
Okay. I'm ready. Go ahead. The threat of or execution of United States interventionism is not a progressive strategy for the betterment of the government nor the people. Using our military influence to strong-arm countries that disagree with us into doing what we want only causes further pushback and involvement with ancillary countries that may further compromise or threaten operations. Even if our intentions are good by implementing regime changes on countries with oppressive governments, there's a harrowing chance that the puppet government or the government that eventually becomes its replacement will be marginally better, or in most cases will retract to how it was previously before our intervention. We have modern examples of how our own government attempted to intervene in our own affairs and how harmful it was, citing the deployment of our National Guard to multiple American cities with the intent to assist in deportation. Our own people, Americans, were immensely and thoroughly against the idea that military forces were being used adversarially under the guise of deportation efforts. If our own people do not appreciate or want the federal government and military intervening in their affairs, it's unfounded to expect that other countries would simply lie down and allow us to control them when usual interests do not actually lie in their favor. It is selfish to meddle in the affairs of others with the express interest of gaining monetarily and makes us no better than our own enemies. I'm a little short of that, but
Is that
yeah,
time?
I'm a little. Yep, I'm a little short, but that's okay.
Nope, no worries. Yeah, like I said, you don't have to use the whole 3. All right, not a problem. Tyler, who's going to cross-examine Owlish?
I'll take the case.
All right, sir. Step up to the plate. 3 minutes is on the clock. Get on it.
All right, first of all, nice to finally meet you in person. I also do IT networking and butt programming as well, so
Nice.
maybe we can click on a different level here. So I was going over your definition, and you said using military influence. Would you consider military influence to be pressure and weapons, as well as boots on the ground or something like that? Would those all fall under the same umbrella for you?
Yes.
So, in your prescription here, you're essentially saying, let's relate it to a microcosm for today's environment. You're saying we should withdraw all support for Ukraine, let Russia do whatever they want. We should take off our sanctions on their oil, let their economy build up, and let them take over whomever they'd like because it's none of our business.
Well, I mean, the sanctions have already come off, according to Trump.
No, they are highly sanctioned right now, and a lot of them are congressional sanctions that he didn't have the veto power to remove. Congress would have to remove them. So
I'm incorrect about that. I was aware that
I'm asking, what's your support? What would you support? Do you support us withdrawing all funding from Ukraine and saying you guys handle it yourself because we're not interventionists anymore?
So I wouldn't say necessarily that giving money is intervening, only because we are allowing them to fight their own war. So if we were intervening in any other way.
What weapons, security guarantees, two things that have also happened as well.
Yeah.
So a security guarantee is saying if you strike X of the area, the U.S. military is going to get involved. We're using our military as coercion to tell Russia not to do X, Y, or Z thing. So are you against that?
So I definitely disagree with that part. I liked how we did it under Joe Biden when we were just giving them to tip the scales in their favor because they had an adversarial country that was beating down on them and attempting to take their territory. So since they were the one not the aggressors, it would make more sense for us to provide them the support they needed, even though they're not in NATO. But it makes more sense to.
And you like that, yes? You saying? I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. We only have such a limited amount of time. You like that. You're saying you like that form of interventionism, where it's a little more fair, balanced, and de-escalatory in the long run. But that's still the interventionism.
No, it's not interventionism. That's like if you ask me for 20. No, it's like if you ask me for $20 and I give you $20, am I intervening in what you're doing, or am I just giving you $20?
In my spending habits, yeah. But when Ukraine is directly saying we're being invaded, and we need weapons, money, and help to get this invader out of our country, give us weapons and money to help us, then we are directly involving ourselves in the conflict. Russia seems to think so. They're calling Ukraine our proxy state. So...
Yeah, so you use an important word there. You said involving, not intervening. So we're involving ourselves by giving them money that they ask for, which is different.
When you involve yourself in a sovereign nation's decisions, that's not intervention, isn't it?
Well, actually, we're going to go ahead and stop it there. Yep, 3 minutes is up. So, Tyler, that means it's now your turn to open. 3 minutes is on the clock. I'll start the clock when you start to talk.
All right, I don't got a lot, so I'm going to talk a little slow because I like to information dump and people get overwhelmed. So, we're going to define interventionism. Interventionism is not sending your military into blowing things up. Interventionism is any time a nation seeks to alter the desired policy of another nation through a form of coercion. This can be military, this can be economic. Sanctions are interventionism. If you say to somebody, you take X action, you put your political rivals in jail, Venezuela, we're going to sanction you. Sanctions are you don't get to use our trade routes, we're not going to trade with you anymore, we're going to freeze your assets in our country. It's purely economic. There is no military involvement at all, and it is the most common use of interventionism by the United States for decades. That being said, this is a 200-year track record. When the United States used its moral principles to say all men are created equal and end slavery in the country, and the UK did the same thing, I think 15 years sooner, they then took that idea of morality and exported it. They told their trade partners, if you do not end slavery as a moral practice in your country, we're not going to trade with you anymore. That is economic coercion. That is intervention. Do X or we're going to take away Y from you. That is the literal and most common use of interventionism textbook. We tend to think of it as just the wars we don't like because that makes the best arguments, but in reality, it's a very, very, very small percent. So we hear earlier that the U.S. is the cause of all this, despite the fact that the Middle East has been a powder keg for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. long before the U.S. was incepted, we weren't involved in the Crusades, none of that. And to bolster this idea that U.S. is responsible for an area that's been in conflict for hundreds of years, long before the U.S. has even existed, we got half-truths. And one dishonest thing, like the New York City terror attack, was because of overseas involvement, when the people that threw it themselves were U.S. citizens that were attacking an anti-Muslim rally in New York City. That was their actual intent. It had nothing to do with geopolitics. So, at the end of the day, the best points being made here by several of my partners is trade is extremely beneficial to the United States. You cannot separate trade with U.S. hegemony. Trade relies on global confidence in the global market. If you have piracy, bad actors, people violating trade deals, you cannot have free trade. It works against it. You need to have these things. What free trade does is strengthen innovation, brings down prices, better living situation for everybody around the world because we share all of our innovation and goods with each other. That completely dissipates if we don't have intervention. Now, if we were to let Vietnam go, if we let South Korea go, if we let Israel go, if we let all these trade partners go over the last 5 decades because it wasn't any of our business, these would not be our trade partners today. We'd be a sole little nation by ourselves, completely outpowered by the Communist Party that would have actually won the non-existent Cold War. So our intervention is what keeps the United States going, and it's significantly better for the United States. The only way you could say it's not beneficial is if you hate America and want this experiment to end.
All right. Gorps. Who's going to follow that up? Who's cross-examining Tyler? Razor. Razor, you're up. Cross-examine Tyler as you see fit, sirs. As you know, clock starts when you do.
Hey, Razor.
Totally sorry. I was trying to gather up my notes. Okay, so when it comes with your definition of intervention, I want to get some clarification from you. Do you truly believe it to be? No, sorry, I apologize. I don't know why I said intervention. I want to know, like, what benefits are being caused by, is the American people currently seeing by all of the different quote interventions that we are doing with the different sanctions in, say, to Iran or Iraq or Russia? What are the benefits that the American people get? You're muted.
We don't know the exact goals of the military, sometimes because Trump's strategic ambiguity and sometimes because he's a bloviating asshole that just says whatever the fuck gets him through the next 5 minutes. So I don't know the actual intent, so it's hard for me to tell you what the long-term implications are going to be. But we have a safer Middle East. If the number one state sponsor of terror and this sole nation that's against the coalition of 9 other nations in that region, mind you, Israel is now teamed up with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and everyone under the Abraham Accords. They're all on the same side, fighting against Iran. Once that threat is out of the region, we are no longer needed to be involved in there. That's a long-term net good for us.
So, really quickly, sanctions that had happened to Iraq, one of our interventions, as you were saying, thing that happened to Iraq, killed approximately 500,000 children. If some other country did something to America that then caused 500,000 of our own children to die, how angry do you think you'd be?
I'd be very angry unless it was something like a sanction that doesn't actually kill anybody. What a sanction is we're no longer going to let you use our trade routes, buy from our markets, sell in our markets, or have businesses in our country. That's all sanctions do.
Yes, there are cases with it, like in Iraq, that it had to do with thanks to economic warfare because of us sanctioning Iraq, that those other children died of like starvation and such. And there's an obvious case to be made. Do you believe that there's a case to be made that if it happened to us, we would probably be very terroristic towards them?
Absolutely not. We've had sanctions placed against us and we didn't turn into terrorists. But you have to look at the whole
Yeah,
context of why these sanctions were put in place.
Their own children died from it.
These sanctions, we have to look at the context of why these sanctions were put in place, is that Iraq tried to invade Kuwait, another nation, tried to take them over, and was also using night gas on that, using war criminal level gas on their own citizens. You're cool letting all those people die and let nations get taken over, but kids not being able to be fed because their nation fucked up.
Our defensive thing, right? Kuwait's part of our defensive thing, right?
No,
NATO, right?
Well, no, they're not part of NATO. They're not even close to it. NATO is anti-Russia. They were in the Middle East. The most southernmost country in NATO is Turkey.
All right, and I'm going to jump in there. Tyler, thank you. Razor, 3 minutes is on the clock for your opening, sir. I'll start the clock whenever you're ready.
So I'm so not used to the time being lower than that. I apologize.
You're
Okay.
good.
Okay. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who are hungry, for those who hunger and are not fed, and those who are cold and are not clothed. This is just a snippet of the quote from Dwight D. Eisenhower about what war costs the American people. These interventionist wars are causing the American people to lose millions upon billions upon trillions of dollars lost to bombs, air jets, and fighter planes that a child cannot eat, that cannot cloak a mother and her family in warmth, and a job that cannot, and a loss of a job to feed that said family. I do not believe that going out and spending our money on all of these fruitless wars, that in order to do regime change, in order to simply attack and take resources from other countries, that we could simply do some damn diplomacy and do trade deals in order to get it going. I do not consider trade deals to be intervention. I consider them to be I consider them to literally just be talking. It wouldn't be an intervention on that. It wouldn't be intervening to simply make sure that our economic situations in America are better with each passing day. And spending billions on bombs instead of food and housing and education here does anything but benefit us. If you believe that intervening benefits America, please tell that to the homeless kid who's probably begging for food right now in the corner, because this country thinks that going to war is a better choice for our money than actually giving that kid something to goddamn eat.
All right. I believe that there is only Cassell left on your team to cross-examine. Is that correct, Tyler? All right, Cassell, Mr. Blurry Man, you are up. 3 minutes is on the clock. Start your cross-examination when you're ready, sir.
Cool. So I would just say for you, Razor, do you believe that the U.S. economy is large enough where we can fund both war and feed our own people? Or do you think that we're actually spending more money on funding wars that we legitimately can't support American citizens?
We are the currently, we're losing it, but we are currently the largest among the largest economies in the world. We could possibly do both, but it's the overspending towards military that's making it impossible to then fund, say, universal health care, universal pre-K through 12, and childcare, and feeding our poor and hungry children on the streets.
So Democrats actually under Joe Biden were looking to expand universal health care and sent that bill to Congress. It was Republicans who voted against that. So
Yeah.
basically, the argument is that one side of the political spectrum doesn't want to expand social social programs. It doesn't mean that we don't have the money to do that or that war is preventing that. It's basically a political argument. Secondly, I would want to ask if you thought that ignoring wars or conflicts in and around the world, if is that something that we shouldn't be defending and that won't cause long-term harm here in the US? Do you think that, past wars like World War II was something that we shouldn't have got involved in and hasn't grown the economy?
I do not consider defense of allies as interventionism. It is our allies getting into a skirmish, realizing that they might need a little bit of help, and going say, "Hey, you can you give us some extra weaponry or funds to make sure that this area is protected?" And then it becomes more of a trade deal, even more so, because without us intervening, they get protected, and we get better deals with our allies, and possibly something better what's going on. But it is not. But I do not consider that interventionism. That is just allies being allies.
Wait, how can you not say that what we're doing with Ukraine isn't intervening in a local regional conflict with them
They're
and
giving them
Russia?
our
That's
leftover weaponry we weren't using. This majority of what's being sent there, all the numbers, dollars that you see being sent, at least on paper, is actually the amount of weaponry that we send over and letting them handle it themselves. We're just saying, hey, we have extra shit, take it. We're not intervening
that's
technically.
actually that's a great point, though. So we're not sending any troops over, and then we're sending old weapons for Ukraine to buy and pay our military folks here in the U.S. that they directly benefit from, make money from, and create
That's not,
jobs from.
again, not intervening. This is once again is just a case of allies helping allies, not without actually intervening.
But Ukraine isn't even in NATO. They're not an ally we actually have to help. They weren't even an
They're,
ally before the war with
they're
Russia. We actually had a contentious relationship
I
with
would
them and
say
their
they're
government.
that has been asking to join NATO's for a long while, and Russia just kept stopping them.
All right. Now I'm going to jump in there.
Okay, so they're not
Oh,
NATO.
yep. Castle, 3 minutes is on the clock
Okay.
now for you,
Yep.
sir. It's your opening. Let him have it.
Cool. So foreign interventionism is not about chasing perfection. It's about protecting American lives, preserving global stability, and maintaining leadership in a dangerous and interconnected world. The United States does not have the luxury of isolation. As a global superpower, what happens abroad does not stay abroad. Instability festers, threats grow, and eventually they reach our borders. Intervention is how we confront those early threats on our terms rather than waiting for them to strike at home. And it's important to understand this because in many cases, my opponent will bring up that the United States did not create the instability. We stepped into situations that were already broken. Take Afghanistan. Long before the US arrived, Afghanistan was already destabilized by decades of conflict, most notably by the Soviet Union invasion in 1979. And that war devastated the country, fractured its political system, and helped create conditions for extremist groups like Al Qaeda to emerge. So by the time that the US intervened after 9/11, Afghanistan was not a functioning state. It was a safe haven for terrorism. So when the United States acted, it wasn't starting a war, it was responding to one, and it dismantled Al Qaeda's base of operations, removed the Taliban regime that harbored them, and for 20 years helped prevent another attack on the scale of 9/11 that whole time. That level of security didn't happen by chance. It was the direct result of American intervention and helped Americans here at home. Considering Iraq, while controversial, it's important to remember that Hussein's regime was already a major source of instability. He invaded neighboring countries, used chemical weapons against his own people, and repeatedly defied international law. Removing that regime sent a clear message that the United States will not tolerate threats that endanger global security. And beyond the immediate outcomes, these interventions strengthened the United States itself. They advanced military strategy, improved intelligence coordination, and reinforced alliances like NATO and ensured that America remains the most capable and prepared nation in the world. That directly benefits American society through stronger security, economic stability, and global influence. My opponent will focus on the costs, and those costs are real. But what he won't address is the cost of doing nothing. And without intervention, terrorist networks would not have continued operating freely. Rogue regimes would have grown more aggressively, and power vacuums would have been filled not by peace, but by adversaries like Russia, as they had done in the past, China, or other extremist groups. Foreign interventionism is not reckless, it's necessary, and it's the price of preventing larger conflicts, that foundation of American leadership, and a key reason the United States remains secure in an increasingly unstable world. And that's my intro.
All right. And if I'm not mistaken, that means that the only person left on the floor is you, right, Vigilante? So I believe that means you are up for cross-examination. 3 minutes is on the clock, sir. Get in there.
All right. So, how do acts of aggression creating more enemies protect American lives?
So could you, sorry, you cut out on my, could you repeat that one more time?
How does doing acts of aggression that create more enemies protect American lives?
So we're talking about acts of aggression like terrorism, I presume. And again, like I said in my introduction, we had terrorists exist long before we ever intervened in places like Afghanistan. So this is something that I pointed out, that this is, we have to look at these threats overseas and attack them firsthand before they look to attack us. I think that's something that we've seen already before, and it's why we prevented many terrorist attacks as large as 9/11, prevented them from happening again here at home.
So do you genuinely believe that if America didn't fund these terrorist groups and basically create them, that still would have drawn their ire?
So in the case of Afghanistan, the Mujahideen were funded largely by Americans before they were even considered a terroristic threat. They turned into a terroristic threat long after we got involved and kicked Russia out of Afghanistan. So in my intro, again, I said that it's not like we're free from making mistakes, but our intention isn't to fund well-known terrorist groups that we believe are going to start attacking Americans. Our intentions are to fund freedom fighters who are looking for independence and sovereignty for their own people, to kick out horrible dictators, and then hopefully they can start running their own country. Sometimes that doesn't work, but I think our intentions are well, because we want to help the people. We don't look to start funding terrorists so they can start attacking Americans.
Yeah, I mean the road to hell is definitely paved with good intentions, but you can
Right.
how can you sit here and say that all of this is beneficial when it's obvious that every time we've done this, and every time we have interfered with these things and funded these so-called freedom fighters, they always end up coming back and becoming terrorist organizations. Every single time that we have done this, they are always end up becoming terrorists that go against our interests and end up attacking us.
So I wouldn't say every time. I think that the only instance you can bring up is 9/11. I mean, we just took out Maduro in Venezuela. We just took out the Ayatollah in Iran. There have been zero terrorist activity from foreign terrorists from these countries happening in the US. And even before this happened, we haven't seen any domestic terrorist attacks from these countries since 9/11 at that scale. So it's hard to say that since that time, we've been causing more harm for the American people when we've actually been protecting them from future attacks like 9/11 ever since, because of our security overseas and the way we've been preventing it over there. We keep the land wars in the Middle East. We don't bring them to the US, and I think that's a good thing for our citizens.
All right, and that's time. Vigilante, 3 minutes is on the clock for your opening, sir.
All right, so I'm just going to reiterate something that I think it was Mcgruffus mentioned. The foreign interventionism is the military, economic, and political interference in other nations' affairs without direct defensive necessity. So one of the big things here that we've talked about are bad actors. How do we determine who the bad actors are? How is it we're just arbitrarily going around and toppling governments that did nothing to us? And the toppling these governments doesn't cause stability, it prevents it. The Iranian Revolution, which was also mentioned, apparently wasn't caused by us, because I don't know how. We literally toppled their government, created a fucking dictatorship. And then it was also mentioned that the Strait of Hormuz is being shut down right now by Iran, supposedly because Iran's just being malicious before we intervened. But no, the reason the Strait of Hormuz has been shut down and our gas prices and energy prices are going up is literally because of the fact that we intervened. Iran did that as retaliation. And then, according to Panda, resources on foreign soils apparently belong to us? What? That's fucking absurd. We can sit here and pretend America doesn't cause more problems by intervening, but the reality is we can look at more recent examples than just the Middle East. China was and is a massive trade partner, but the recent wave of aggression from China, an otherwise peaceful country, was started by the aggression of the Trump administration. This obviously reapplies to the Middle East because all of the issues that we have in the Middle East were caused by U.S. aggression. And going all the way back to the Cold War, where we funded the Mujahideen, and who later became Al-Qaeda and a number of other terrorist groups. And then once we finally destroyed Al-Qaeda, they became ISIS. But apparently we should just endlessly kill and kidnap foreign leaders, costing hundreds of thousands of American lives until they institute a government that we like, and that this is somehow beneficial to America. It is an insane proposition that making people martyrs by committing terrorism against their country, only gaining us more enemies just because moral brownie points somehow benefit us when they don't. Interventionism can be a moral good, like when we intervened in World War II. However, moral good, more often than not, has a cost. Doing nothing is free, while doing the right thing often costs lives and a fuckload of money, and is not always beneficial.
Landed it right on the button. Good job there, Vigilante. All right, well, that wraps it all the way back around to you, Lethe. It is your turn to cross-examine, sir. Go ahead and cross-examine Vigilante as you see fit. Clock starts when you start, sir.
You're muted.
Muted.
And you are muted.
Hey, Vigi, how's it going?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
So far, so good, especially with the things that you said. I'm very interested in knowing, was there not a history of violence in the Middle East regions before the U.S. even came into existence?
Yes, there was a history of violence in the Middle East, but none of that violence was directed towards the United States.
Because it didn't exist at the time. They could direct it anywhere they choose to, and it was directed at the people that they saw as enemies, correct?
Generally speaking, it was directed at their religious enemies, typically speaking, the Jews, and in some cases, Arab Christians.
Not the British?
The British who invaded them and literally caused their own problems in the Middle East, just like we have.
So that is the US's fault?
No, you just gave an example of how the British caused the same issues that the U.S. caused with the Middle East. How the British drew the ire of the Middle East because they acted aggressively towards the Middle East as well, causing the exact same problem we see today, where they create their own problems, and so did we.
And so them invading all the way to Spain was something that was warranted on their end, creating more disenfranchisement, creating more animosity toward them?
I mean, considering that would have been caused by the Crusades, I would say that, yeah, it was. I'm assuming you're talking back in the Middle Ages.
Somewhat. So you acknowledge that some interventionism can be good, correct?
It can be good, but that doesn't mean it's beneficial. See, there's a thing here where we're conflating what is good and what is beneficial. Something that is good is not always beneficial.
So would you say tamping down on extremist groups in the Middle East is not beneficial to the whole of the Western world?
I mean, the terrorist groups wouldn't be our problem if we didn't fuck with them in the first place. So
you're saying the terrorist groups that also went up against other extremists that they didn't agree with and were much smaller than the larger groups they were attacking, it's better to just let
the groups that only got as big as they are because we funded them and provided them weapons, and so did the most of Europe, and literally created the problem.
All right. That is 3 minutes off. Now, we are going to go. That completes our openings and our cross-examinations. Great job, everybody. Enjoyed the hell out of that. I hope that the captains were watching closely because now we're going to get into the champion rounds. So, once again, the way this is going to work, there's going to be 2 rounds of champion rounds with 5 minutes on the clock for each. And for those of you who are not participating, highly recommend you slide into those DMs and throw in your thoughts at your champions. But Captain 1 is going to be affirmative. You get to choose your captain first for the first round. The negative is going to choose their captain first for the second round. So, Tyler, who do you want to put into the ring for 5 minutes?
Oh, Cassell was on fire. I'm going to put Cassell in there.
All right, Cassell. Then that means the Cassell, Gorps, anybody but Vigilante or Razor, who would you like to go against Cassell for the next 5 minutes?
I'm gonna go.
Okay, that's awesome. So it's going to be Gorps and Cassell sliding into the center for 5 minutes. This is, again, just an open cross conversation, so use it as you guys see fit. Again, please keep it clean, above the belt, but get into it. Time starts now.
So, Cassell, do you recognize the fact that every time that America has been attacked by, for example, terrorists from the Middle East, it has been because we intervened in the first place?
Do I recognize? So when's the last time that happened?
I mean, the most high-profile example is 9/11, where it was exactly cited that U.S. intervention in the Middle East is what caused Osama bin Laden to plan and execute 9/11.
And you would also agree to the fact that we've been in Afghanistan, Iraq, arguably Syria, Libya, all 20 years later, and we have not been attacked by any of those countries since 9/11.
We've been attacked by terrorists within those countries.
In America?
I mean, we have, decently regularly small terrorist attacks in America, and also our American service members abroad are constantly attacked.
Which foreign nationals have from any of those countries have attacked
It doesn't need to
Americans?
be a foreign national from that country for somebody to do it on behalf of that. So, like the attempted attack in New York City this month, right? It's not a foreign national, however, it was done on behalf of ISIS. It was done inspired by ISIS because of our actions within the Middle East. It
Right.
was
So
our
domestic
intervention that
terrorism
led to
is
these things happening.
that would be domestic terrorism from somebody not from that country. So our involvement there, I mean, you could say that
You're right.
somebody could be
You're right.
upset.
American citizens who are radicalized by foreign terrorist organizations are domestic terrorists. Sure, if you want to characterize it that way, either way, it is a direct result of American intervention. These
Okay.
terrorist
And so
groups
your
only
argument is that
exist
if we
and target America directly because of U.S. intervention.
okay, and there are also domestic terrorists who believe that we should be a white Christian nationalist country as well. I think that people with extremist beliefs will always be problems within this country. I don't think that just extends to people abroad. That extends to a lot of people at home, unfortunately, if you're on the right or even on the left. So I
You're
think
right,
if
but
you
shouldn't
start
we
to take
minimalize how much we're having people that want to do terrorism to the U.S.? Shouldn't we try to minimize that? For example, by not radicalizing people through killing their babies? I'm sorry,
yeah,
if I
so
had a
when you don't
child
you
and
wait,
America
wait,
came in and killed my child, I would probably get a little bit angry. I might do
don't you
something.
agree that right-wing nationalism has caused more domestic terrorist attacks than any foreign wars
That is
that we've been
irrelevant. We're talking about
introduced in?
foreign intervention. We're talking about
Right. So if you're
benefiting
but if you're
American
concerned
society.
about
There's no benefit
but
here
if you're
to American society.
concerned about terrorism
There's
here, we should
only
start
harm.
with the biggest cause of terrorism, which is domestic terrorism fueled by
No, no,
right-wing
no, no.
nationalists. And
You're right, but it's irrelevant to the topic.
you brought up terrorism.
Yeah, terrorism caused by American foreign intervention.
Right. And I'm saying that we haven't had a
Domestic
single
terrorism for
foreign
other reasons is
intervention.
irrelevant to this
We haven't had a
topic.
single foreign terrorist attack our country since 9/11, and we've been involved in the Middle East ever
I'm pretty sure
since.
that's not true. I'm pretty sure it was like Santa Barbara or something, like 6,
It
7
is
years
true.
ago.
They were American citizens.
Either way, if they're radicalized by these foreign terrorist organizations that we have caused through our intervention, they're radicalized by these foreign terrorist organizations to commit these attacks. Do you think that if somebody is an American citizen but says, I pledge myself to ISIS and then goes and does a terrorist attack, do you think that that's an ISIS attack? Or is that just domestic terrorism?
Listen, I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm still saying that we should go after
No,
these
you're
people.
not
But you're
answering the
acting
question.
like
You're not answering the
yeah,
question.
I'm going to answer it. You're basically saying that if we have 500 people who die from gun violence every year. We should go after the 3 people who are attacking folks with knives in the streets. And I'm saying there's a bigger problem with the 500 people
I'm
we
saying
should be going
go
after.
after anybody, but you're not fucking arguing the prompt. Stay on the prompt, all right? The prompt is about foreign intervention. I don't care about random white nationalists when we're talking about foreign intervention. I'm talking about a direct cause of American foreign
I know, but you
intervention.
can't name any foreign intervention that's happened in the country. You're saying, well, maybe something in Santa Barbara happened.
I can't
And now
name
you're
any
saying that
foreign intervention that happened. How about invading Iraq?
yeah,
How about invading Afghanistan? How about currently bombing Iran? How about
yeah, and
funding
you
the
can't name a
genocide in
single
Palestine?
terrorist who's
This is
attacked
all
the U.S.
foreign
from that.
intervention that leads to
And you haven't
terrorism
named a single
against
person who's attacked the
Americans.
U.S. from this.
Bro, the foreign intervention is America attacking all of these countries. That is
Yeah.
the foreign intervention that directly leads to American
And
service members killed, American
okay, you're talking about
tankers
service
being
members now.
bombed.
Okay,
These are
so now we're talking
Americans.
about
These are
service
American
members.
citizens. The fuck?
Okay.
Their U.S. embassies get attacked. That's American soil.
Okay, but you were talking about terrorist attacks at home. If you want to talk about the service members, I'm fine with addressing that point
I did
too.
not say terrorist
But
attacks at home, by the way. And I have mentioned this multiple times throughout the course of when I've spoken on this panel.
okay, but you know
Attacks
that
on
we
American
have service.
citizens are still terrorist attacks, and it's still a direct result of American intervention.
Okay,
This
so
is
if you
not
want to talk about
beneficial to
actual,
American society to have Americans being killed and wounded due to the blowback from our actions.
yes, and I'm sure you would say that it's not beneficial for Americans to die in World War II or the American Revolutionary War. Like obviously, American civilians or American troops dying is bad, but that's the casualties of war that we have to deal with when we go overseas and are trying to,
We don't have
help
to go overseas.
countries.
We're not forced to
Well,
go
how would
overseas.
we?
We choose to, and that's the problem.
And I'm going to jump in.
Okay,
Okay,
so
nope, yep. I let y'all cook for a little longer, but 5 minutes is up. Great job from both of you. Now we're going to do our second round of that. Gorps, who are you going to put in for your champion?
Vigi.
Vigilante. And so that means, let's see, it cannot be Cassell or Lethe. Who do you want to meet him in the middle, Tyler?
Oh, I want this one.
Tyler versus Vigilante. All right, putting that 5 minutes back on the clock, and get on in there, y'all.
Yeah, what's up, Vid? You're the only threat on your team.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I mean, Cassell wanted to keep using the false dichotomy, bringing up the homegrown terrorists and shit, right? So on the note of using false dichotomies, I do want to ask you a question. So since we believe that it was since you believe that it was beneficial for America to have funded these groups that eventually became terrorists, do you think it was beneficial for Israel to fund Hamas?
In the time that it happened, I'm glad you asked me this. I have a 26-page Israel Pollard document. I know all about that. So what happened was the PA was actually the major threat. They had just gotten through the second Intifada, where tons of Jews were killed. It was hangings and things of all that nature. So the PA was the major threat. So they had this up-and-coming, not yet terrorist group, Hamas. They funded them to win the election so the PA wouldn't have control of both sections of Gaza in the Middle East, basically breaking their united front. So even if Hamas did turn terrorists after, both groups were weaker because they were split either way. So yes, it was beneficial for them short-term and long-term.
But Israel continued to fund Hamas up until very recently, up until 2018, when they were after they became the major threat in Gaza.
So a lot of that funding was humanitarian aid. They were also supplying 9% of the water from Israel was going into Gaza because they had dug up their own water pipes to turn them into rockets. They were also supplying food. There was also about 500,000 work visas being granted to Gazans specifically to come inside Israel and earn wages. So they were working with this government. They were trying to normalize peace. They were currently in a ceasefire when the attack on a bunch of civilians at a concert happened. So I noticed real quick that you were having a hard time in your opening statement distinguishing who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. So I just want to ask you a couple of questions. When a group of people steals tens of billions of dollars from another country, rigs its own elections, kills its political rivals, and then starts mowing down its citizens in the street, you're still having trouble distinguishing who's the good guy and the bad guy and think it's arbitrary?
It is arbitrary because we have plenty of allies that do similar things.
Okay, but you're saying that doesn't matter. What is one of our allies that has done what Venezuela, who I just gave you an example of, has done to their citizens that we didn't punish them for in recent history?
Israel. We'll just go right back to Israel.
Israel killed tens of thousands of its own people and rigged an election in its own country?
Yeah. Actually, yes.
No,
yes, it fucking has.
Of its own people?
So Palestine is technically under the jurisdiction of Israel. So every member of every Palestinian that they kill is killing their own people. Also, if you want to talk about them also fucking sitting here rigging elections, let's see, how long has Benjamin Netanyahu been in power after fucking even the one time that he fucking got out of power, that he proceeded to fucking dismantle the government and sabotage the government in order to get back into power? And you want to say Israel doesn't do the exact same fucking shit?
What? You're accusing Benjamin Netanyahu of election fraud? There's no proof of that at all. You are going past Trump. You're going past Trump with his 2020 claims right now and going full making shit up the Jews are stealing elections. Benjamin Netanyahu has only been in power for 3 years because he lost an election against a coalition of 8 different parties. These parties varied in diversity from far right to far left. They were supposed to have a coalition where they split power. After the second one came into power, one of the far right parties refused to vote for the far left policy that they wanted to push, and the coalition fell apart. That's why Bibi got back into power. There was no nefarious election rigging. You just made that shit up.
Okay.
Rebuttal?
No, let's get back. We're way off the prompt. So how does...
That's because you can't distinguish between the good guys and the bad guys. I'm going to ask you a question. How can you not distinguish? You said an ally that's killed tens of thousands of its own people, jailed its political rivals in its own country, and killed its people in the street, like Venezuela did over the last 20 years, after stealing $100 billion from the United States. Name a country that's done that we haven't sanctioned.
Again, Israel. We haven't sanctioned.
Israel has not killed
Israel.
When has Israel stolen $100 billion from the United States? This arbitrary thing is just
we literally give them we give them billions of dollars every year. And
giving somebody something is consent. You don't have consent when you steal something. Those aren't the same thing. I'm asking you when they've stolen, like Venezuela stole $100 billion in U.S. technology and funded into their fucking oil field.
When did Venezuela steal that money? When they
Che Guevara, was it Che Guevara? There's 2 of them. When the leader before Maduro took power, they nationalized the oil fields. Those were all owned by U.S. companies. Since then, it's been about 20 years, 30 years of lawsuit. They've only recuperated about $20 billion. They've won almost every lawsuit, recuperated about 10% of what they lost.
So do we not own the fields here in America that China is currently in possession of? Like, countries own their own resources and can determine what they do with them.
Go ahead and stop there for me. Great stuff. Great back and forth. I appreciate the hell out of that. But again, I say just like the last one, I'll let y'all go a little over. But we do want to keep this reasonable because we have a lot of people here and a lot of people being patient. So with that said, we're going to go back through. As I said, we're not going to do any Q&A session. We're going to save our questions and such for the after party, I think, judges. I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am, and I hope it's going to be just as difficult for you guys to decide as I think it's going to be. With that said, we're going to go through our closing arguments now, but I want the judges to remember that We are going to be asking you to put forth someone to steelman at the end of the closings. And it cannot be any of the two people that just came from your team for the champion round. So you're going to have to choose a third different champion. So with that said, we're going to go back through in the same order we started through, which means Lethe, if I'm not mistaken, you kicked this fucking party off, sir. I'm putting 3 minutes on the clock for you. Whenever you're ready to serve, use as much of that to close as you want. Put a cherry on it for us, boss.
So, as we've shown throughout this entire debate, most of these conflicts were pre-existing. Anytime that America got involved, it was a net benefit to all parties involved, aside from bad actors doing what bad actors do. We try to aid certain regions, like when they decided to take the aid in the water pipes that we put out in Palestine to attack an enemy that they felt was problematic for them. They could have accepted that help. They chose to use it as a weapon. That is not America's fault. We were doing something good for the global community. Holistically, when it comes down to America's intervention policies, globally, I would say up until recently, it has been a stabilizing force. And we have shown this time and time again, even in the instances in which, hey, we don't like that America backs Israel and they decide to attack us for this or other entities within the US, it is not due to American interventionism. It's due to hatred of another country that America is allied to. Most of the instances in which they have said, hey, these regions were stolen from, or we're looting from other entities, it has been the other way around. We have shown that they have ruined American prospects within their own countries, which were there to benefit them as well, have ruined trade, have destroyed alliances in doing these things. America has still been there to give a helping hand, restabilize the region, and do it all over again. So, for the most part, as we've seen in most of the arguments, some of them have been made up or hyperbolized. America has been an overall stabilizing force globally. And I yield my time.
Okay. Mcgruffus, 3 minutes on the clock for your closing, sir. Start it when you're ready. And you are muted.
So,
okay, you're good.
All right. So the prompt says foreign interventionism is beneficial for American society, right? And I started this debate by pointing out that that's pretty hilariously ambiguous. Foreign interventionism could mean France helping us win independence, or it could mean what the affirmative was defending, America bombing countries that never attacked us. But here's what's not all that amusing. The consequences of that ambiguity aren't just grammatical, they are deadly. Because interventionism operates on the same vague, shifting logic as this prompt. We are, quote, spreading democracy, except we're backing dictators when convenient. We are fighting terrorism, except when we create the terrorists. We're protecting American interests, except we can't define what that means when we've already invaded. So let me tell you a little story about blowback. In '79, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. The CIA decided this was a great opportunity to give the Soviets their own Vietnam, so we armed the Mujahideen. We gave them weapons, training, and billions of dollars. We funded a guy named Osama bin Laden in his organization. We thought we were brilliant, using Afghan fighters to bleed the Soviets without risking American lives. The Soviets withdrew in '89. We won. We celebrated. Mission accomplished. Except the Mujahideen we armed didn't just go home and become accountants. They became the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden's organization, and on September 11th, 2001, they used their expertise we gave them to fly planes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. 19 hijackers killed nearly 3,000 Americans, and those hijackers didn't hate us because of freedom. Bin Laden's 1996 speech, his declaration of war, explicitly citing American interventionism. Troops stationed in Saudi Arabia, the holiest site of Islam. Sanctions on Iraq that killed 500,000 children. Support for Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories. We intervened. We created enemies. Those enemies attacked us. So we responded by intervening war. The affirmative is defending aggression and uses of force against innocent people who have never attacked us. They're defending $8 trillion of while accomplishing nothing. They're defending the creation of terrorists that we then fight. They are defending the destruction of American liberty through the surveillance state while claiming to spread freedom. That's not beneficial to American society. That's catastrophic, self-perpetuating disaster that makes us poorer, less safe, and less free. You either learn from the blowback or you are doomed to repeat it.
All right. Let's see. We're over on energy. Energy, you got up to 3 minutes. Use as much as you need to. Close us out.
So the conclusion I would like to respond one thing to Gorps, if that's okay, which is basically he mentioned this idea that this is not a theoretical or philosophical debate. It most certainly is. So this goes into your theory of how foreign relations work and your philosophy of ethics, right? What is the right thing to do? And in my view, what's right is also what's beneficial for us, because basically, if we establish that we are the moral, good people who intervene on behalf of human rights, secularism, science, and other healthy values, we get the moral benefit of on top of the moral benefit, there's also the reputational benefit. So basically, as I was stating, basically what happens is the good stuff America does means long term, more people want to trade with us, more people want to be our allies, etc. I think that non-interventionism is literally going to it's it's a really silly and mistaken position, because basically it's getting rid of our reputational thing and it doesn't take into account that. Another thing I'll say is that it is not economically beneficial for us or for foreign countries to steal the contracts that we signed with their oil companies, because when you have a country that doesn't respect property rights or contract rights, that means that there's a moral hazard and people don't want to invest in that country because they're afraid of their investment getting confiscated by their government. I'll also add there are other problems with regards to the fact that if you want to minimize foreign terrorism, yes, there's some blowback when we attack, but ultimately foreign terrorism is reduced because of interventionism. And if we had not intervened in Iran, then they would still be funding Hamas and Hezbollah. Whereas our current, what I think is an attempted regime change by the Trump administration, will long term get rid of this funding of Hamas and Hezbollah. So on every count, whether we're talking about reputation, which is good for trade and peace, whether we're talking about the benefit to American citizens in the form of having safety from foreign terrorist organizations being funded by totalitarian, authoritarian, theocratic, etc. type governments, whether we're talking about the benefit that we get from the having a more secure allyship because people want to be friends with us. So it's not just a trade, it's also the allyship. And when we're dealing with the various benefits that we get from foreign intervention in the form of upholding long-term trade agreements, which is good for their countries. We also get that moral satisfaction that we can know that they don't have the moral risk, so it's a net win for everyone. It's a net win for us. It's a net win for them. And at the end of the day, I think that it's incredibly ignorant to be an isolationist in the modern day. And with that, with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I would like to say good night. Well, I'm not going, but I'm just saying I'm done with the thing.
Good stuff. Landed it right on the button. Okay. Gorps, 3 minutes is on the clock now for you, sir. Go ahead and close.
All right, so the opposition has failed to show an actual benefit to American society. The benefit of other countries is irrelevant as the prompt dictates benefit to American society. Even if Iran slaughters their own protesters, that does not mean that intervening in that actually benefits American society. Our side has gone above and beyond our job just to refute them and proven the harms of American foreign intervention. The 500,000 dead Iraqi kids due to U.S. sanctions, not to mention the over 1 million total dead Iraqis due to American intervention, obviously is going to spark terrorism. Any normal person, if their parents are killed by a country, they will want to resist that. There's thousands already of dead Iranians. Since the war started, we have over 200 injured service members, 14 dead service members. Since the war in Iran started, there has been a synagogue attack by a foreign national directly due to the actions of the U.S. and Israel In this war, American embassies across the Middle East are being attacked by the everyday people of these countries. This is putting even more American lives at risk. The Iranian war is the perfect test case. Going back in history, we overthrew a democratically elected government to install the Shah, somebody who was never going to be able to keep power because he did not have the public support. This directly led to the revolution in which the IRGC and the Ayatollah took power. Now we're looking at doing the exact same thing. Doing the same thing again and expecting different results is the definition of stupidity. Instead, we now have to deal with the highest gas prices in years, and for decades, we will be dealing with homeless veterans that have PTSD from fucking Shahhead drones. Venezuela posed no threat to America, yet we went in and couped their government for no actual benefit to America. America has seen zero positive outcomes of doing that. And in response to Energy's point about reputational benefit, there is no reputational benefit. Our reputation and our track record of intervening in these countries is horrendous. We slaughter civilians just like Israel slaughters Palestinians. Obama bombed schools. Trump bombed schools. There's no reputational benefit to killing everyday civilians, to killing people's children. All it does is spark more people to hate America, and in turn, it sparks more people to want to hurt America. This is a very clear and obvious harm to American society, and there is no there is no world in which this is outweighed by any maybe benefits that exist from doing these actions.
Once again, landed it on the button. You guys are killing it tonight. Hammer, you're next at the plate, sir. Grab your bat. 3 minutes is on the clock for you. Start it when you're ready.
First thing I'd like to just say is that I believe that Mcgruffus' side has also wildly strayed away from the point of the topic. The war in the Middle East is something that has happened. It is one of the policies that has gone on in America in the last couple decades. Okay. It is not the entirety of foreign international affairs. I will not justify every single action that we made in the Middle East, but that is a tiny microcosm of all the influence that we have across the world. We have a history of engaging in conflicts that have through today had a major benefit to it. It can't even be classified as a benefit. It is so major. We interfered during World War II when Nazi Germany was trying to take over all of Europe. If we hadn't done that at the time, then we would no longer have our strongest allies in Western Europe. We interfered during the Soviet Union during the Cold War. And if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't have some of our strongest allies that we currently have. If we go forward and say, hey, we are not doing any kind of foreign intervention, we are going to let things pass as they will, we will be in the same situation. We see this obviously with Russia and what they're doing in Ukraine. The moment we stop committing to engaging ourselves by protecting our allies, they will take over nation after nation. Gorps wanted to bring up how we haven't mentioned the actual benefit. Okay, how about let me just look up the number. Oh man, I just posted this. I think it's in 2025, it was 5.59 trillion, consisting of 3.42 trillion in imports and 2.18 trillion in exports. That is our global trade economy. That would be completely impossible if we had no involvement in the entire world. If we couldn't defend any of our allies, then we cannot have any of these benefits. Completely. I get that we can bring up examples where this goes wrong because sometimes we don't make the right choices, but that doesn't mean that we should just completely end the type of policy where we intervene in foreign affairs, especially since we have our citizens in those countries. I mean, you may not think that that's important because it doesn't increase our GDP as much, but because of our alliances, we are allowed to have our citizens move back and forth and have their citizens move back and forth to our country, and that makes us a more worldly people. It makes America what it is. It's like it's like what Tyler said, the only way you can disagree with his prompt is if you do not like America and what it stands for. And I'll end.
Good stuff. Also landed on the prompt. Owlish, you're up. 3 minutes is on the clock. Use as much as you need to close. I'll start the clock when you start to talk. You are muted, my friend.
Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry, my bad.
No, you're good.
We have seen we have seen multiple times where the United States interventionist has been a negative outcome for both us and the countries involved. We have 1953 in Iran and 1979 in Iran, and I distinguish the dates because those were two different events that caused two different problems in which they basically reinstated the same government that they had previously. We have Vietnam, Cuba, Venezuela, where all of the Vietnam intervention obviously ended in disaster, where we have people forever scarred by the chemical warfare that we did on them, that we didn't tell we were doing on them. Cuba and Venezuela having regime changes that backfired on us. This is Venezuela 2022, not current day Venezuela, which still we are not sure of the benefits or of that yet. We have all of these things have caused long-term instability and blowback from different countries. We see that a lot of countries, when we intervene, may not take the economic hit, but a lot of other countries do end up taking that economic hit, and we have no way we don't really care to help them once that economic hit hits. And I just wanted to address that we caused the problem in Hormuz, so I don't know why any of our opponents are arguing that like we should intervene. We caused the problem, so us intervening in a problem we caused doesn't really make sense to me. I think the best result would be to remove ourselves from the situation, which we should have never intervened in the first place because we had no economic means to do so. I also wanted to mention that during World War II, we only became involved in World War II once we were personally attacked. We literally saw people overseas dying. There was that whole Holocaust thing. We saw people overseas dying. We kind of just kept our hands up and we said, we're not going to get involved. But we only became involved when we were directly attacked. So interventionist ideology still didn't exist back then. And another thing I want to address is that defense is not necessarily offense. We can be defensive without being offensive. I think offensive action is never good. We should not just attack someone because we can. That's not something that is antithetical to the American belief system, and it's antithetical to freedom, not only to us, but to overall, and it sets a bad precedent for everyone, including our allies. I yield my 9 seconds back.
All right. Good stuff. Now we're looking at you, Tyler. Follow that up. 3 minutes is on the clock for your closing, sir.
All right, so we're going to go through all the claims that have been made and how those have ended up in the conversation. Claims about the double standard against our allies. Those fell apart when the example that Vidge chose to show me that a group of people were slaughtering their own people, rigging elections, and jailing their political rivals could not be found. Owlish agreed with our side of the prompt 2 times just now in her closing and during the questions that I asked her. She says she agrees with the intervention, just not as offensively as it's been done in the past. So welcome to the side. If we get the win, I hope you get some points. While it claims that the U.S. is the cause, so the last one I just heard was that the U.S. is now the ones laying mines and firing into the Strait of Hormuz, or they're responsible for Iran doing it. We're not pushing the buttons. That is taking away the agency of the entire nation who is actually deciding to shoot into the Strait of Hormuz. You're saying we're the reason Iran's doing it. No, Iran is the reason Iran's doing it. It's time to hold everybody accountable, not just blame the U.S. for everything. We have all sorts of blaming the U.S. for everything. What we have was another example brought up of Iran. And we had Iran in the past, where the U.S. did go in and implement their own leader. Well, that coup was started organically in the country. All we did was back it. It was the people that were starting that coup. And he kind of just cherry picks where in history he wants to start, because prior to that, the USSR has been spending about 15 years in their government pushing them toward communism. They were in the middle of nationalizing their hospital system and nationalizing their oil fields when the US intervened because Russia was so deeply embedded into their government. These people were doing the intervention first. They were the first ones to go in there and do this. We were isolationists at the time. We didn't even want to get into the world wars. We were isolationists, minding our own business. Russia was going around trying to get everybody under their fingernail. We pushed back against it. That's what the Cold War was. So all these bad actors doing all these bad things, you're just not even bringing it up. You're not trying to justify it. You're just saying history starts when the U.S. stepped in. It is the most U.S.-centric take I've ever heard. Even nationalists don't love the U.S. this much, or think about the U.S. this much. Now, the benefit that Gorp denied is being brought up, even though it's been brought up 10 times. He could say, I heard no benefit. It just means he's not paying attention. What we have is trade, imports, and exports outweigh the cost of us aiding our allies 5-1. The only way to keep a market stable enough for people to want to do that economic trade, which we saw cap out in consumer confidence in 2023, right before the war started when Gaza attacked Israel. Right before that happened, we had global confidence at a market high in 2023. This means the most people, countries, companies were willing to do global trade. This brings down the cost for the U.S. taxpayer. This brings down, it accelerates innovation. This makes our quality of living significantly higher. Everything about global trade is a net good, especially the fact that we earn significantly more money than we spend on aiding our allies. So if you complain about the money and say there's no good, Gorp, you're just not paying attention, because we make significantly more being interventionists than we would letting our allies die to evil people that Vig can't even tell if they're evil when they're slaughtering their own.
All right. Razor, you're up. 3 minutes is on the clock for your closing, sir. Give us what you got. And you are muted, just so you know.
I'm taking a breath. I apologize.
No, take as long as you need.
Okay. So, our opponents have obviously shown that they believe that that America can do no wrong whenever we cause our own issues, and using all of our money to help everyone else but ourselves. It seems, while we do have more than enough money to possibly do both, due to the amount of money that goes to defense contractors to go overseas to create more bombs, to do more damage and cause more strife in the Middle East or any other country that really we have no business dealing with at this point in time. We have American people struggling here, to where any money that comes from our allies from what we are currently helping, or are any of our current interventions currently helping America, as they are saying, is just going back into the pockets of the defense contractors, not into the pockets of the American people to help feed the hungry. I will say in the quote from Dwight D. Eisenhower, he stated that the cost of a modern bomber is a modern brick school in more than 30 cities. It is 50 miles of concrete pavement, and a single fighter plane can pay for 500,000 bushels of wheat. There's so much money that we are losing because we decide to intervene in wars or intervene in countries that we have no business going into. If you want to have these different respect or moral high grounds in order to have that strength across the world, soft power is a lot better. It is not intervening. It is simply making a consensual deal with another country, and you're not intervening with their stuff. You are simply saying, I want to trade. I want to make sure that both of our citizens are taken care of. There's no need for all of this hard manpower, strength, peace through strength that never really leads to peace. Because as we have stated, the only thing that happens when we do peace through strength is we get more terrorist attacks or people that hate us because we bombed their kids.
All right. That sounded like a punctuation mark there at the end. Brother Cassell, you are up for your closing, sir. 3 minutes is on the clock. We're all ears.
Cool. So I think just based on what my opponents had said to me this debate that they want you to believe foreign intervention is creating more danger than it prevents, that terrorism and the loss of American lives are the result of U.S. action abroad. But it ignores a critical truth that the threats we face did not begin with American intervention, and they existed long before we even intervened in places like Afghanistan or even Iraq, where terrorism existed before the US intervention. And terrorism didn't start because of the US. Groups like Al Qaeda formed in already unstable regions. They fueled by decades of conflict, including events like the Soviet invasion, which I mentioned. And by the time the US intervened, these groups were already organized, dangerous, and targeting Americans, as we saw in 9/11. So the real question is not whether intervention creates threats, it's whether it confronts them. And it does, because without intervention, those terrorist groups are left unchecked. They gain strength, expand their reach, and increase their ability to strike. Imagine if ISIS was gone unchecked in the Middle East and in Syria during the Syrian civil war. It would have gotten worse. That country could have even been taken over completely by ISIS without US intervention, which would have caused even more chaos. So intervention disrupts, weakens them, and forces them on the defensive. It's why after 9/11 and sustained US action abroad, we have not seen another attack on that scale for 2 decades. My opponents also point to the tragic loss of American troops, which is a real loss and matters. But those sacrifices aren't in vain either. They're made to prevent even greater loss of life at home, and that's the reality of national security. You have to confront danger abroad to reduce the likelihood of facing it here. And to suggest that intervention also creates terrorism oversimplifies the deeper issue that extremism thrives in power vacuums in failed states. And in regions without stability in the United States, if the United States withdraws completely, those conditions don't disappear and they worsen. And when they do, they grow even larger. So foreign intervention is not about creating conflict, it's about managing it before it reaches us. That's how we protect people at home and how it benefits people here in the US. So there are costs and there are difficult outcomes, but the alternative of inaction allows those threats to grow stronger, more organized, and more dangerous, because it's between confronting danger early or paying a far higher price here later. And history shows us which one keeps Americans safer. And I'll end it there.
All right. And last but not least, Vigilante. You get to bring it home. Last word goes to you. 3 minutes is on the clock. Let's hear the closing, sir.
So, today we have witnessed a lot of bootlicking by a side that pretends they want to put America first, but instead, they want to put Americans to the grave first, pretending that these wars and coups benefit us while we now have $3.50 a gallon in gas prices in even the most cheap areas of the country. Food prices that are highest that they've ever been, and instead of focusing on taking care of the people here at home, we are prioritizing delivering death to foreign nationals that are manufactured enemies. We would rather topple democratically elected leaders all over the world and prop up fascist dictators while pretending the reason that we do this is to promote democracy around the world. You might believe that this discussion, the discussion that me and Tyler had of who is being good is arbitrary and is being arbitrary, is irrelevant to the topic, but I promise you it's not. For the example of the Mujahideen that has been talked about here a lot, they were freedom fighters, but once they started fighting America to become free from America, they suddenly became terrorists. Who we consider good is arbitrary based off of who we determine is good for us to ally with. I don't think any of us here would consider an absolute monarchy to be a good thing, but somehow we consider the only absolute monarchy in the entire world, Saudi Arabia, to be good. This cannot be explained in any other way than that what is good is arbitrary. And this is important because we use the excuse that we are helping the good guys to stop the bad guys, as well. What we are really doing is creating puppets that we can control to ship American jobs overseas and hurt Americans even more. To be clear, this is not about it is not about should we do what is good, like they are pretending it is? It is about if doing things that in some cases are good, like regime change, like military intervention, is actually beneficial to American society. The fact is, the affirmative has not even remotely demonstrated that it is beneficial to society. Their entire argument stems on a straw man that it is beneficial because we are doing what is right. It stems on a whataboutisms like Venezuela and stealing money from us by taking their own resources back. All they have done is try to appeal to our emotions, trying to push that it is patriotic position. The fact is, they have conflated trade with interventionism. They have conflated what is good with what is beneficial. They have simply not proven any actual benefits to the American people. We have clearly proven that this does not benefit the U.S. It only creates more problems.
And time. All right. So, everybody, I am going to remind you that it cannot be one of the champions who have already spoken, but Tyler and Gorps, go ahead and start thinking for a few seconds. I'm going to come back to you in a moment for who's going to do a 2-minute steel man. And what I'm asking for here is somebody who is going to give the best case presented by the opposition tonight, or even just your own best case, whichever, steel manning the prompt from the opposite side. I only need 2 minutes from each of those two interlocutors, but I'm also going to remind the audience, chat, and this goes across all of the chats, including over there in yours there, Tyler. I'm going to be putting a link into the chat for everybody, and you know what? Debaters, you're welcome to vote too. Everybody go ahead and vote on it. It costs absolutely nothing. It's a free link. It's just going to ask you whether you think that the AF on top made the best case or the neg on the bottom made the best case. We go to the judges first. If the judges disagree, then it comes down to the audience vote. And with that said, Tyler, who is going to be your steel man for the night?
Hammer time.
Hammer is going to be your steel man. All right. And Gorps, just so that we can go ahead and go through it quick, who is going to be your steel man?
Mr. Cat Ears, Razor.
Hammer and Razor, really? Okay. Well, then, we're going to start with 2 minutes on the clock for you, Hammer. I would like for you to please give us your best case for foreign interventionism is not beneficial for American society. I'll start the clock when you start to talk. That's you. You are the one that was invoked by your captain.
Okay. I am understanding now the point of the steel. So I'm supposed to be arguing for the enemy team,
You
right?
got it. I want you to articulate the best arguments for the opposite side of your prompt.
Oh, so wait. We're not repeating their arguments. We're making our own. We can make our own.
You make up your own arguments. Yes, correct.
I misunderstood that too.
Nope, that's okay. 2 minute steel man of the opposition. If you want to use their arguments, you're welcome to. If you want to use your own arguments, you're welcome to. This is simply just to show that you at least understand the other side's position.
Can we call it timeout? 30-second team huddle?
Absolutely. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves if you need to while I'm doing that. And you guys, Gorps, same thing. If you guys want to talk a little bit behind the scenes in your DMs and such, I'm going to go back to my judges and I'm going to tell my two judges, you guys have been very, very quiet throughout this. You guys have been enjoying the show, I'm sure. And I'm sure that you guys have a whole shit ton of notes. So with that said, whenever I do go to you guys for the decisions, I'm going to ask for each of you to just give a couple of words of feedback to each of the debaters throughout all, and I know that's a lot. So, again, try to keep it succinct and moving, but just some sort of thoughts or feedback for each of them before you actually give your final total score points. And remember, everybody, it is going to be 10 points total that they can distribute across the two teams. So that said, 5-5, 6-4, whatever, whichever side wins, obviously, is going to go based on your vote, not the score, but the score is for the rankings in the AF, or in the after. There you go. That's what I was trying to say. So that said, I can sit here and babble for a couple more minutes, and I'm going to. Thank you, everybody, by the way, in the chat and in the debates for participating tonight. Enjoyed the hell out of it. I am honored by each and every one of y'all's presence every single Saturday, and I hope that everybody's enjoying this as much as I am. We're going to keep doing this. Last thing that I'm going to say before I go back to hoping that they're ready to steal man is a reminder that next Saturday is going to be a little bit different too. This was our first time doing a 5v5. It was just to see what it would look like. I'm going to get some feedback when we first start the after party about how this went, the goods, the bads, the uglies. There were some parts of this that I liked, some parts of it that I didn't, but I'm not sure how often we're going to do 5v5s. Probably not very often. It was mostly just kind of an exhibition match, which brings me to the last thing I was going to say. Next Saturday is also going to be an exhibition. For anybody who wants to have a piece of me, I am putting myself up as tribute. I am standing in front of the firing squad. Anybody who would like to debate me next Saturday, I'm going to have two judges, hopefully the same two judges here, because frankly, they're kind of the most fair and imbalanced, or fair and impartial judges I have, as well as a guest moderator. I'm going to ask you to give me the position that I hold on the prompt you propose. So in other words, send me a DM if you want to participate next Saturday. If you want to debate me, it's going to be a 1 minute open, 5 minute cross, and then 1 minute closes from each and every one of you, and we're going to try and do those rapid fire. I'm going to take anybody who wants to come. So that said, start thinking about the prompt, start thinking about my position, tell me what you want to go on, and yeah, again, I will not deny or turn down anything that is within TOS. So if you want me to if you want me to defend World War II, that shit ain't happening, but damn near otherwise, you're probably good. So that said, are you now ready, Mr. Hammer, to steelman the opposition?
I think I'm about ready. Did you put the link for the straw poll in chat yet?
I have not yet. I'm waiting until after this.
Okay. Fair enough.
So,
okay.
2 minutes will start when you start to talk.
Here's my argument for why intervention is a problem that the U.S. It is a problem that U.S. isn't engaging in it. Okay, because the opposition, they need to prove that the decisions that we make when we do intervention, that the actions of intervention themselves have a direct benefit to the American people, usually economically, but also to the livelihoods and to the mortality of Americans. They can't do that. If you look at all these examples of intervention, if you bring them up, let's look at what do we get from it? What are the financial outcomes of it? It's all negative. We're all losing money. What are in terms of livelihood? Well, we have soldiers with PTSD, and we have people losing their lives. It is almost exclusively negative. And then, well, fine, we can steelman it here by saying we're going to get some long-term benefit. Once we engage in these conflicts, we're going to have more allies. We're going to have more trade partners. But that doesn't seem to happen, does it? We've done this in the Middle East for decades now, and we haven't gotten any allies from it. We did that with the Cold War. How many allies did we get from that? We did that with North Korea. We didn't get any allies from North Korea. We didn't get an ally from North Korea. We got South Korea. We got one of the nations that we fought for. We are one of the nations that we fought for, and they are not a major ally for us. Most of our biggest allies are not ones that we've defended in any major conflict. We didn't get like, you know what? I made an argument that I can't even agree with myself on. I'm going to end right there.
All right. No, it's okay. You understood the assignment. You were doing fine. Okay, so
I caught myself.
Now you were about to start arguing with yourself. I know, I heard it. All right, Razor, same things on the clock for you. 2 minutes. This time I want you to tell me why you think that it is beneficial, that foreign interventionism is beneficial for American society. And I'm putting 2 minutes on the clock for you. Give us your best steelman.
Through showing the absolute might of the power that we possess, we put a fear into dictocratic leaders authoritarian leaders in multiple different bad actor countries, and make them fear that if you mess with one, you mess with all. A true peace through strength, as it were. So it is beneficial in the sense that we then have better trade partners who feel safer with us, because they know that if they are working with us, they are working under the umbrella of America's military. And through unfortunately, I think, and I believe that's the over and under of it.
Yep. Nope. That's all right. You know what? The truth is, like I said, this was the first time we've ever tried this. And I think both of y'all did exactly what I was asking for. I think both of y'all nailed that better than I could have expected. No, it's okay. I heard Hammer's eyes roll back into his head while he was speaking. So that said, both of y'all did exactly what I asked you to do, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. I appreciate it, because to me, that is really important, right? That we can demonstrate that we at least understand the logic of the opponent. So with that said, we have gotten to the end times here, people. We are going to drop that link in chat. Like I said, everybody out there in the shared chat, click that link. Go ahead and go vote. It costs you nothing. And we're going to see who the judges think it was. I'm going to give you that link as well now, Tyler, so that you can put it into your chat as well as anybody else who's secretly streaming on YouTube and not telling me. It was a lot to listen to. DoomerChief, who wants to go first on this? I know, like I said, if you can, I want you to kind of go through each of them, just give them a couple of words, feedback, whatever, good, the bad, the ugly, and then render your judgment. So, Doomer, are you ready?
I'm still going over some notes here.
Cool. Chief, do you feel like you're ready yet?
Yeah, I need to keep mine kind of quick and pithy because I kind of got a hard out anyway. So I don't mind just doing a quick rundown of the part where we just say nice words about people first and then give a score.
Perfect. That's all I'm looking for, buddy. Let us have it.
I feel like Lethe was a strong foundation to get the team started. He does a great job of understanding both sides of the argument, and I think that's why that's a strong place to start. So yeah, great job just like getting the ball rolling there. Mcgruffus, I think you're really smart and have direction. Take a moment to gather your thoughts and get your feet underneath you before you start moving in a direction. I feel like that'll be like helpful for you, is just to, even though there's a clock ticking in front of you, almost like don't worry about that pressure so much. Just kind of, worry about like where you're going, and like I said, get your feet underneath you. Energy, I think that was his first time on one of your panels for the debates horse.
If you don't mind, second, I think. Yeah, they were on one before here.
So he's still like newer, but I feel like this is Energy's like strongest performance. I felt like I feel like all the conversations Energy's having, on like peripheral channels and stuff like that is really doing like a great for, just getting him some practice in some of these more adversarial conversations. I felt like he was really well composed and handled himself well in this conversation, especially against Gorps, who could be a really difficult opponent. Gorps, I feel like you kind of went down a line. I feel like Gorps has great awareness, and when Gorps kind of went down a line of questioning, I feel like didn't go too well for Gorps. Gorps kind of like pulled out the hook and yanked himself off stage and kind of went another direction. So great job for having the like awareness in that moment to kind of just like pivot, not in the negative way that people say pivot in a debate, but just, heading a direction that's more beneficial for your argument. Hammer, I'm still getting to know Hammer, but I feel like Hammer also does a great job of understanding both sides of the argument, and is always able to really earnestly engage in these exchanges. And I feel like that really speaks to what we try to do here, and I feel like he's been a great addition lately. So great job, Hammer. Also, Owlish. I feel like Owlish fucking came out of the gate swinging. Like, I don't really know Owlish that well at all, and I felt like Owlish had some really great prep, understood the assignment, had a fucking tough challenge with the cross-X coming from Tyler, but absolutely held their own ground against Tyler, who, you know, being the kind of leading score holder in this kind of series for this first experimental type season. I just feel like you really did a great job, Owlish, start to finish. So great job there, and welcome to the show. Tyler, fuck you. No, just kidding. Tyler, you know, Tyler, the advice that I give you is the advice that I've probably given you the last 3 streams. Find some way to fucking get your mic closer to your mouth. Other than that, you know what you're doing out here. Razor, prep to understand and argue the opposite side. I feel like something that newer debaters or people kind of newer to the arena of debate have is maybe because you're so passionate, I feel like your passion could sometimes like cloud the ability to imagine the chess moves that your opponent might make. Like you know, you kind of had to throw up in your mouth giving the the attempting a steel man that I thought was honestly like kind of mid. But I feel like if you kind of prep in advance to argue the opposite side a little bit better, I feel like that's going to take you further in these conversations, and then you won't be as caught like off guard is what it seems like when it ends up being like your turn sometimes. Vigi, I feel like I have some of the same critique for as Razor, in that like your passion could have the ability to cut off your ability to like think a step ahead. One thing that I feel like Vigi is make great passionate arguments. The close Vigi gave I thought was fucking fantastic. There was at one point though where Vigi said that we're deciding what good is and who the bad actors are, and it's kind of arbitrary. And I feel like with all of these recent conversations about Christians arguing about an objective morality that I'm sure Vigilante doesn't agree with, then I think it'd be kind of interesting to kind of explore what the idea of that arbitrary nature of good is. And is there an objective good then, if that's what you're saying? I don't think you believe that. So just kind of, again, like the passion clouding the ability to step ahead. And then fucking Cassell has been like on fire lately, on a hot streak. You saw him fucking shadow boxing in the background, ready to kick ass and take names. I think maybe the tape fell off a little bit. So get some stronger tape, Cassell. Other than that, fucking keep up the good work. You're headed, on a great path. And I feel like you really do have your legs underneath you, and you're kind of like really stepped up your game lately. So great job to you. But overall,
the score.
I found it tight, like really tight back and forth. There was some like really, I don't need to get into like each individual score, but there was like some really surprising results, specifically just to highlight like maybe one or two. Like I thought like Energy kind of eked out against Gorps's cross-X. That was really, really amazing to see. I had Owlish toe-to-toe, defending against Tyler's cross-X. I thought that was amazing. And then, Cassell doing a great job in his cross-X against Razor. But overall, I gave the final score of 6-4 to the Aff.
6-4 to the Aff. All right. Great feedback, sir. Absolutely loved it, and I agree with most, if not everything you just said. So once again, chat, I'm putting that straw poll link in there again, just in case Doomer completely disagrees with every word out of LetsChief's mouth. It's going to come down to y'all's vote, so please make sure you click that and tell us who you thought did the best job. Not who you agreed with, but who you think made the best case, which team made the best case, and which team laid out the best rhetoric. Okay, Doomer, have you composed yourself, sir? Are you ready to lay it on us?
I think so. I wish I took better notes this time around. Went a little more vague with the amount of people, but yeah, I'll try and cover this.
Do the best you
quickly
can.
Enough. Yeah, so I'll just kind of start from top to bottom in Discord here.
That's fine.
Tyler, I felt, was like the pragmatic and more like facts-based person on the team. Really represented the argument very well. Yeah, I just really liked the strategy there. Lethe, I felt opened super well, really covered the bases, and in his cross really kind of covered what the person kind of laid out and kind of rose the questions I was kind of raising in my own head there. Cassell was shadowboxing, and I kind of got a little distracted, but outside of that was a fucking MVP in my head, kind of. Both him and Hammer kind of brought in like the reality checks kind of on some argumentation, I felt, and kind of more solidified how I'm voting, actually. So yeah, kudos to Cassell and Hammer there. And yes, that should be a podcast of some kind. Energy, I thought, answered like everything that Mcgruffus brought up in his question and everything. I'm given, or Gorps, but really brought up pretty much everything that was kind of questioned there, and I thought also had an all-star second performance. Want to see more energy here for sure. Gorps and Vigi both kind of got the same notes from me, almost like literally identical on my notes here. Brought kind of the more emotional side of the argument, all the historical links, and like kind of like Tyler on that side, more of like the pragmatic kind of facts side. I really appreciate that. I felt the only downside in theirs was kind of a narrowing of a definition of like military intervention versus any kind of intervention. And outside of that, like I think they were damn near perfect, actually. Mcgruffus, I thought everything was going to go different once Mcgruffus opened up after Lethe. Like I thought him laying the definitions out first in the debate, I believe, and kind of making the arguments of how everything is fitting those definitions to their side, I felt was really strong. I felt he kind of won the race and getting everything defined there. For Razor, I kind of had the same thing with the note with LetsChief with the Steel Man. I just think it, especially with like I'm in the debates kind of more in the background most of the time, but just knowing every line of argumentation that they're going to make so you can kind of game down every conversation and discussion, and just knowing which turns it's going to take is going to help you out tremendously. But outside of that, you're doing really well. Owlishness or Owl, whichever you want to go by. Really liked the first showing. If there was a good faith award, I'd give it to you for like some of the questioning that Tyler was giving you. You're just taking on the horns, and even though I think it kind of went semantic a little bit at some points, like kudos. I really liked the engagement there. I did see it a little more one-sided than LetsChief. I gave it a 7-3 to the Aff, just because I felt that the negative kind of narrowed the definition to more military type intervention versus any other types of intervention. And really that's the only thing. I think if the prompt was more narrowly defined, they would have taken it for sure. But outside of that, I just on the little prompt battle there, I think the Aff kind of took it a little more just based on the prompt.
All right. Well, there you fucking have it, people. It sounds like regardless of the audience's vote, you guys, it doesn't actually matter, but I still want to see what you decided. At this point, the judges are in agreement that it went to the affirmative side. However, I do want to say that regardless of the score, regardless of the winner, everybody brought their fucking A game tonight. I was impressed by every single one of you guys. I agree with everything that the judges said, but I would also bring up the fact that I have watched many of y'all go from never having debated before to what you did tonight, and it's super fucking awesome. It makes me feel even more faith in what we're doing here and why we're doing it. So thank you guys for that. Let's go ahead and look over and see. For what it's worth, I'm going to get to my MVP in a second, but I do want to see where we're at. Drum roll, please. Ooh, it's closer than, but it's the same. 6-4. 6-4 to the Aff. So it looks like it is a shutout. All three judges, the audience and our two present, all agree that this went to the affirmative. Now, I do want to be clear. This does not mean that they're right. It just means that they were better at saying they're right. Now, the MVP thing. So once again, as you guys know, whenever we started out the season, I was letting the judges choose an MVP of the night, but then I decided, you know what, you guys are fucking deciding who wins, and I just sit here and listen. So I get to decide who gets the MVP. And I was torn. I had it down to 3 people, but I'm just going to say that both of the captains, you guys reminded me why you were the captains, why I chose you as the captains, why I'm pleased with you as the captains, and you reminded me of why having captains on these team debates is useful. However, and I was tempted to give both of you guys an MVP, but really, man, I gotta side with the judges. Cassell, 2 weeks in a fucking row. I am giving you the goddamn MVP, bro. First of all, the shadow boxing, getting pumped up and psyched and ready. Dude, everything about what you did tonight was amazing. You stood up to the scrutiny. You brought a great opening. You brought a great closing. It was a thing to behold. So, for the second week in a row, Cassell is going to bring home the MVP from the horseradish. Huzzah. So, all right.
Thank you. If I could say one thing about that, I can't believe that happened at the worst time. I was talking to my fiance, and she's like, "You think people saw you?" And I was like, No. I think it just fell off. And then I'm getting critiques about, "Yeah, we saw you shadowboxing." I'm like, "You got to be freaking kidding me!"
No, dude, I'll go you one better. I even wrote in my notes, "Goddamn, Cassell is swole." Like you don't look scary when you're just sitting there neck and shoulders. But dude, like I'm like, "Goddamn, I don't want to squab with that dude." So yeah, no, it made you look cooler, not worse. I promise.
All right, good. So I'll take it.
Anyways, I want to say once again, thank you to every single one of you guys. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I did. I hope that you guys are all going to keep coming back starting April. I'm going to keep doing this regardless, although as many of y'all know, several of us are involved in another separate tournament. I'm going to do my best to avoid putting people who are involved against each other out for sake of, that debate tournament and for these, but we're not doing a tournament here. Like I said, it's more of a proving grounds. It's more of a place for all of us to practice and get better. So that said, I am hoping that there is going to be feedback about the 5v5s, but mostly just in general about things that we can do moving forward, how we can keep making this better. And the fact of the matter is, I'm going to look to you first, Owl. This was your first time. This was your first exposure to the DMZ, what we do here, who we are, et cetera, et cetera. And you don't have to I want you to be honest. What were your first impressions?
No, I actually liked it. It's a good experience. I have all sorts of debate experience coming from, multiple different formats, YouTube, Discord, TikTok, and then just randomly, people that I fight on the streets, fist fight. No, I'm just kidding. No, I like it. It's a good, I like this format with the time thing, because it can get a little bit overwhelming when you have 10 people talking at once, everybody talking over you. So I do appreciate that a lot. It's good. I like it.
Good.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're going to keep getting invites. You don't have to respond every time, but the way that this works, and if you know other people who are interested, especially now that you've seen that it is kind of a safer place to be able to get your thought outs and stuff, if you want to spread the word and have other people reach out to us, first of all, everybody out there in the chat, if you haven't already, please by all means jump into the Discord channel. I will give you guys all. It'll look like a hollow and empty channel when you first get there, but it's just because you got to read the rules and stuff, and I'll give you your permissions in a few minutes whenever we're done tonight. But the way this is going to work is I send out a list of between 5 and 10 prompts after, like Sunday morning usually, after the debates on Saturdays, and I ask everybody to just respond with a quick aff or a neg for each of the ones that you're particularly interested in or you're willing to debate, and if you're super passionate about it, throw an asterisk after it so I know that that's one that you want to, and I tend to prioritize people who A, show up, B, are new, and C, have a passion for that prompt. So if I try to keep it as fair and interesting as I can, but yeah, I appreciate you, Cassell, keeping the camera on for us, buddy, and yeah, everybody, if you want to turn off your cameras or whatever, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, so like I said, we do the 2-hour debates, and then it's usually about 2 hours, give or take. It went a little long tonight because we had the 10 people, but I mean, it is what it is. But then afterwards, like I said, we're about to open it up so that everybody can kind of have a conversation. Now, we try to still be respectful. We try to still be as leave as much space for people to not talk over each other. However, I mean, when you got a fucking herd of people who are all passionate about the subject, it tends to get a little sloppy. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and put that on the open party on. I'm going to run and go to the bathroom, get myself something to drink. Everybody here, y'all just kind of start discussing. When I get back, I'm going to go through and I'm going to kind of talk and ask some questions and kind of direct the conversation a little bit more. But for now, just kind of spurg or whatever you kids call it these days.
So,
Cheers.
I have to say,
Yep.
I have to say, the judges made me regret being nice on this debate.